Good evening, everyone. I have a short statement to read out before we begin. So there's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit, through the closest exits or through the glass doors behind you, and through the double doors to the riverside behind you. Please muster at Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting, using whatever non-disrupted methods they think are suitable. This meeting is being minuted, streamed and recorded, and I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form from the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it's recommended that you make a member of staff aware who can direct you to where you can sit. The Westgate garden gates on the riverside are locked at sunset, so members of the public must leave via the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Just before we properly begin, you may notice a change of chairman here today, which leaves me to give a great deal of thanks to Mr. Alex Ricketts for everything he did and got us through some of those long meetings, the last one I remember particularly. So I shall look forward to doing that, but thank you very much, Mr. Ricketts, for all of your work. Anyway, moving on. Apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillors Brady and Flanagan.
And substitute members?
No substitutes, Chair.
Okay, declarations of interest by members or officers. Can you read out the declaration?
We've received nothing in advance.
Okay, we're whizzing through for now. Minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March. We need to agree that they are a true representation, a true record. Do we have general assent on that? I'm seeing nods, so we will take that as consent. Thank you very much. There are no public speakers for the meeting who will be heard directly before the relevant item. I think we have to just say that. Wonderful. That's the background done. I'm delighted to say we have Joel Mitchell here with us today. Joel's, I want to say, managing director of Stagecoach. So that's wonderful. Who's here to give us an update. Shall I hand straight to you?
Yeah.
If the technology is working.
Nothing's come through.
Has it not?
Right.
Well,
Are you able to do it without?
yeah, I guess. Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do, John. Let me send you a PDF version. Talk amongst yourselves for 30 seconds, everybody, and then I'll just. Because I might.
This is the technology not talking to one another, which is always a worry.
It's annoying. But there we go. I would like to share the slides, given that I spent 2 hours preparing them for you, but sometimes the world will conspire against us. I'm perfectly capable of waffling on my own, so don't
You
worry.
know what happens with emails? You're waiting for one and then two turn up at once.
See if that's come through, John, because that's just the PDF, so it's much smaller. It's only 3 meg. The other one's a shared document. John.Hughes.
Oh, it's JON.
Is it?
Oh, sorry.
That'll be it. At canterbury.gov.uk.
Yeah.
It doesn't like that one. Let's try that. I'll just send you the PDF. I'll live without the custom animation.
You'll be able to bring this to life.
Yeah, I can through the medium of dance.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Nothing's coming through.
So I've sent it. Forwarded it on.
That's you've done. Okay.
I've done that one.
Oh, here we go.
There you go.
Here we go. Here we go.
Right, there we go. It's just the PDF, so it'll give us something to look at on the screen, even if it's not quite as sexy as I'd intended.
Sorry.
Is that yours?
Thank you, John.
That will now come up on those screens. So if you want to move it around as you speak.
You ready? It's not up yet, is it? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joel Mitchell.
Right, good evening. Sorry about that. And you are spared my custom animation flying in from left, right. So I'll just talk to the slides because it's the material that is important. So I'm the managing director of Stagecoach South East. We are a separately registered company. We are the East Kent Road Car Company trading as Stagecoach in the South East. There are 18 versions of me dotted around the United Kingdom under the umbrella of Stagecoach Group. Stagecoach is one of the biggest transport providers in the United Kingdom. It is the biggest bus provider in the United Kingdom. There's other big owning groups. We're all much for a muchness. First Group, Go Ahead, Arriva, and then you've got smaller ones locally. I've been doing this job for just over 7 years. Prior to that, a bit like my friend Paul here, I worked in the rail industry for 20 years. I was headhunted to come and do a job in bus. Was quite excited about the prospect, quite like the social aims, quite like the value to society that bus brought to the people that needed it the most. So was tempted to come over and do that. So I joined in March 2019. Felt a little bit shortchanged when I turned up, had been promised full autonomy. You're going to be a managing director. It's going to be on you. You can do what you want to do. Found that there are actually a lot of levers in the bus industry that aren't at your disposal, that are in the rail industry. One of the best things about the railway is the integration between the people that run the trains and the people that look after the infrastructure, the tracks, and how they work together. Actually more so now because it's vertically integrated. In the bus industry, not so much. So, and that's been a personal frustration for me because a lot of the things that I want to do are outside my gift. A lot of the things that I'm held to account for aren't things that I can directly influence. However, we do have a very good relationship with Kent County Council, and we do have a very good relationship with East Sussex County Council. And over the years, we've been able to do a lot more partnership stuff with people like SGN, UK Power Networks. So there's a lot more relationship in order to try and build industry shift and improvement for communities. So essentially, in March 2019, me and the team at the time getting our kind of feet under the table and understanding a bit about the bus industry, it became very clear that the bus industry was in terminal decline and had been so probably for 10 years prior to that. And so we kind of came up with this, what we called the cycle of deprivation, which effectively was an annualized budget cycle where you had to make a certain amount of profit to be able to get enough money to reinvest it in the industry and have newer buses and try and drive growth, which then meant you had to put your fares up, which then meant your customers left you through patronage burn off, which then meant you didn't make your revenue, which then meant you had to put your fares up, which then meant you had passengers leave you, which then meant you weren't making your revenue, which meant you put your fares up. And we were ending up in this horrible cycle where by the end of it, you were going to have Mrs. Miggins paying £25 million a year for her bus ticket on her own before she didn't want to do it anymore. Then you turn the lights off and everybody went home. So we decided we weren't going to do that. It sounded like a really bad idea. It was a little bit like Einstein's definition of insanity, and we were just doing the same old thing over and over again and hoping for a different outcome. So we had a good old go at turning the business model on its head through something that I'd experienced worked really well in the rail industry, particularly in my previous job at C2C, which is a little railway that ran from Fenchurch Street out to Southend, where we'd applied this kind of 5-point plan to how to run a transport company. Wasn't particularly revolutionary, it wasn't particularly innovative, but it was kind of something over 20 years I'd learned, and therefore, with a bit of help from the time I spent doing my masters and all that good stuff, I kind of stuck this stuff together. And me and my team at the time had used this, and it had taken C2C from 6th to 1st place nationally. We'd won Rail Operator of the Year at the UK Rail Awards. So there was some good legacy in this. So I thought, right, let's have a go at applying this in the bus industry. Principally about kind of what's going on and what matters to people. So the first bit of this was kind of understanding the story. So we could see the industry was in terminal decline. Fine. Let's not be. So what do we need to do? Well, let's go and engage with our customers and find out why will people use the bus more? What's stopping people from using the bus? What should we do differently? Pretty straightforward stuff, as you would expect. People value punctuality, reliability. They want the bus to turn up when they say it's going to turn up. They want it to be clean. They want the driver to be friendly. So we started to focus on that. And critically, a bit sort of Branson-esque, but it's always worked for me. What do the people in the business want to make it a great place to work? Because if you value the people in your organisation, you've got a much better chance of them looking after the customers. It's quite difficult for me personally to look after 34 million passenger journeys a year, because there's only one of me, but I've got 1,500 employees. So if we look after them and engage with them and help them realise it's a good place to work, there's a much better chance that they'll go and look after the 34 million passenger journeys. And then those 34 million people will become 50 million people, because they'll talk to each other and there'll be advocacy and people start to support the bus industry. And ultimately it's a community thing anyway, because people need bus, right? So there's a big swathe of society that will rely on the bus, particularly the young, particularly the elderly, particularly people that can't afford a car, particularly people who are in low income households. So bus is needed for social good, for economic good, for environmental good. You know, one double-decker bus takes up to 80 cars off the road. So if you're a believer in environment, if you're a believer in emissions and reduction in emissions, then bus is great. So we went and asked our employees what they wanted, what they thought it would make it a better place to work, and then we did some of this bottom left stuff. I won't worry too much about it. Just SWOT analysis, PESTLE, all that stuff that you will know if you've done that kind of business leadership things in the past. Cultural change. The Harvard Business Review on cultural shift and what kind of organisation do our people want to work in and what kind of organisation do people want to use. And that was kind of cool. And we launched our 5-year plan, which we called People at the Heart, which was around the 3 C's. So it was focusing on colleagues, customers and a community. My parents are Christian evangelists. They were missionaries when I was a kid. And I'm not a particularly big churchy kind of guy. I'm not particularly happy clappy, but I kind of am conditioned to want to spend my career doing something that adds a bit of value. I don't just want to make a load of money for a load of rich people. Fine if people do want to do that. There's no judgment there. I wanted to give my career to doing something worth doing. And bus felt like a good place to be able to do that because it's got a bit of social good to it. Yes, there's a bit of capitalism in the current market. Yes, you're funded by various people that will invest capital in for an ROI on their capital. Great, whatever. But it was a good opportunity to really start to try and push this industry forward. So we launched this People at the Heart strategy. We did loads of great stuff for our employees. My dad is a bus driver. There was an issue with assaults, so we dressed up all of the employees' children in Stagecoach uniforms. We got loads of great coverage on ITV. There was lots of good press coverage. We did things like Meet the Manager, which was a lift and shift from the railways, as Paul will tell you. We tweet the directors. We just tried to make it accessible and a bit friendlier and a bit less stuffy. And it was going really well. And we started to see a bit of growth and we started to see a lot more internal employee engagement shift. And it was brilliant. And we'd launched it in we were running up to it from March 19 when I started and started to shift the culture. And we officially launched the 5-year strategy for growth, People at the Heart, in January 2020. And in February 2020, this happened. And I will never get over the resentment I feel that I never really had a go. I never felt like I've had a chance to do what this industry needed. Because ever since then, all the strategic plans we put in place to grow, to serve the community, to try and find a better way to run the bus network, ended up being, if we don't make really brutal, ruthless business decisions, there isn't going to be any buses anywhere for anyone. And that wasn't what I signed up to do. I signed up with a declining but steady baseline to grow from. And suddenly we were down to 10% of our patronage base. We were losing multi-millions of pounds, and you suddenly find there is no funding. All of your farebox revenue is capped by things like fares promotions, which were great at driving growth, but weren't driving revenue. And costs had gone up 33% because there was a financial crisis, and I've got union negotiations wanting retail pricing index increases on their wages because there's a cost of living crisis, and suddenly I'm negotiating 10-11% wage increases without being able to put it back on fares. So it became really difficult. We had to merge Dover and Folkestone depots. For those of you that might remember that at the time, we shut Folkestone. We had to make 50 bus drivers redundant. And it was rough, really tough times. And I'm sharing this because it's helpful context as to where we are now. That Greener Journeys, that bottom right-hand corner slide there, was the one that got me to take the job. So when I was headhunted for the job, I went and got a bus. I caught one of the Stagecoach buses from Maidstone to Harrietshire, where I lived at the time, and it made me feel sick. I was travel sick. The driver was miserable. The bus was old. I couldn't work out how to buy the right ticket. The app didn't work. And I said to my partner, no, I'm staying in rail. This isn't for me. I like my glass office overlooking my railway tracks. And then I thought a bit more about it, and I Googled this thing called The Value of Bus to Society. And I found this piece by a lady called Claire Haig, who was the chief exec of Greener Journeys at the time. And it talked about all the things you could do if you improved the 10% areas in the country with the highest social deprivation indices, if you could improve their bus services by 10%. And in amongst that, there was one that resonated with me, which you could save 2,500 of years of life lost through an improved social mobility, really. So that was the reason I took it. So I just reminded myself that because COVID had come and wiped out a lot of our plans, it didn't change the reason why I wanted to do it. It didn't change the reasons why the 1,500 people that worked in the business predominantly wanted to do it. So we came out of the back of that. We still were surviving. Yes, it was horrible to shut Folkestone. Interestingly, we merged. Dover was massively loss-making. Folkestone was massively loss-making. We merged the two sites. Tomorrow, I am with Dover Depot at the National Bus Depot of the Year Awards, because Dover has had such a resurgence from that difficult business decision that not only is it one of the highest performing in terms of its KPIs and things like safety, punctuality in the UK, but it is also looking like I might be able to secure £25 million of capital investment to fully electrify Dover Depot off the back of that really horrible business decision, which will be hugely redemptive from a selfish perspective, but also great, not just for Dover Depot, but it means that I can cascade all of the current really nice diesel buses to places like Herne Bay that serve the Canterbury network. And a lot of the stuff that comes in from Dover and Folkestone comes into Canterbury anyway. So some of you will see them. So, there is good stuff coming out now from effectively 3 years of what's been really painful, because we've either, over the last 6 years, we've either been in COVID or been recovering from the pandemic and the impact on passenger numbers. So this is kind of where we are now. And this is, so I give you the context. Here's a line in the sand, and this is us moving forward. And I'll share with you some of the things that are happening, and then I'll take any questions. I'm very happy to be completely transparent. I'm 50 next month. I haven't got anything to hide. I want to keep trying to make this a great place to work. If somebody decides that I'm not the person they want to do that, I'll go and work somewhere else. But I like this and I want to keep investing in it. So the next 3 years, look better for us. The last 3 years have been horrible. We've had to re-baseline. We've had to cut routes that have been really unprofitable on the basis that before COVID, our really profitable routes allowed us to support all the stuff that was loss-making, but our really profitable routes fell from really profitable to kind of covering their operating costs, and all the stuff that did cover their operating costs went into loss-making, and all the stuff that was really loss-making is now really loss-making. And there's only so much funding that Kent County Council can can use to support currently 67 services across Kent, some of which are operated by me, some of which are operated by Arriva, some of which are operated by Roland over on the Isle of Sheppey. And, you know, there is a pot of money available that was for long-term strategic growth, but has to be repurposed for socially necessary services that aren't economically viable. So it's a challenging one. However, the relationship between Kent County Council and the bus operators, and I don't mind speaking openly for the bus operators, my colleagues will tell me if they wish I hadn't, means that, you know, I see the value in the relationship between the local authority and the bus providers. So from our perspective, we merged those two depots. We had to make our fares simpler, which was great because it makes sense for them to be simpler for our customers anyway. But it has been, oh, that's you, John. Anyway, I think who's that? I don't know these people. It's been more challenging, certainly, to try and maximise your income to underpin those loss-making services. Our partnership approach has been really good. What is really interesting is we've put about 7% on punctuality over the last year by the way in which we've timetabled and the way in which we've recruited and the way in which we've been operating. We've put 7% on punctuality against the backdrop of congestion now counts for 60% over the last 3 months. Traffic congestion counts for 60% of all our cancellations. And over the last 5 years, road closures in Kent have increased by 300%. So trying to run a bath is hard enough, let alone a flipping bus company when your roads are just closed all the time. Because if you've got a set of traffic lights in front of you that weren't sure were going to be there, if you're in your car, you can spin round and go another way or turn left. If you're in a bus, that way hasn't necessarily been risk assessed. You don't know if there's a railway bridge down there. You just have to sit there. And reversing around the corner on a double decker with 80 school kids in it is not something you want to try and do in an easy way. All that said, cancellations are coming down. So our last 4 periods have seen some of the lowest levels of cancellations we've seen in Stagecoach South East. And off the back of our complaints are at the lowest level I've seen in the last 2.5 years, which is very encouraging. And fundamentally, what I wanted to share with you is this year, this 26-27 year of which we've just finished period 1, this for us is a year of profitability growth, not because we're desperate to give lots of profit through dividends to shareholders, but because our owning group is reinvesting that profit into electrification for our bus company. And this is a moment in time, because I don't know how long our owning group will own us. You know, with how this market works, we may get sold at some point, we may not. But Kent County Council have got funding available for capital investment. I've got funding available for capital investment. And if I can demonstrate that my bus company is profitable only to the level of the cost of borrowing of that capital, I can have it reinvested in new ticket machines, new buses, new bus depots, because there is a desire from my owning group to fully electrify Stagecoach, which is wonderful. And they're doing it in order of priority by those depots that are easier to return the cost of capital of borrowing, which is about 6.5–7%, depending on the market at the time. It's not crazy money. And it does take the pressure off other agencies, local authorities to try and find capital investments to make bus environmentally friendly and attractive for customer use. Critically, local authorities have also at the minute got money for capital investment for bus priority. And what I've learned in the last 7 years of doing this job is you will only get people out of the car and onto the bus if you've got things like bus lanes, bus priority measures, stuff that materially makes people want to get out of the car. In fact, I just spoke to my neighbour today. He said, "Where are you going all smart this time of night?" I said, "I'm going to Joint Transportation Board at Canterbury City Council." And he said, "Oh, right, what do you do?" I said, "I run the local bus company." He said, "Oh, I haven't got a bus for years." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, why would you get a bus if you can get in your car?" And I thought, their end is that's it. Why get on the bus if you can get in your car? So you have to try and make bus preferable to the private car. And the way to do that is more bus lanes, and the way to do that is more bus priority measures. So, but that's a political debate. There might be some people in the room like, "Yes, go on, Joel, preach it," and other people going, "When's this guy showing up?" So I'll continue to move on. That's our 5-year plan now. Looks a lot similar, because for the first time since I joined, I feel like I've got my mojo and my energy back, so I can do all the things I wanted to do off the back of coming through a really difficult period of time. So we've got a good team in place. We're really focused on putting people at the heart again, not just fighting for survival. But yes, great. We've got wonderful employees. We've got a community that needs bus. We've got customers that are feeling happier about their service provision. We've got green shoots around investment. There is capital available for bus priority measures within the local authority, and for us to have newer buses, newer tech, newer facilities. So 26-27, what are we prioritising for you, for Kent, for East Sussex, for all of our community? So we've got 5 concentric circles that we've created that really needs to be the focus area for my entire business for this coming year and probably thereafter. But the first one, we have to reduce our cost base. If we do not reduce our cost base, we have too many routes that become non-viable, and Kent have used all their money to support commercially non-sustainable routes that are socially necessary, which means you end up taking buses off the road. The one thing I cannot afford to do and do not want to do is take any more buses off the road. We've had to cut already so that we can keep running anything. Now we want to build back. So you will know, simple sum, is your revenue per mile, is the amount of money that we generate per mile more than the cost per mile of putting the bus on the road? And running a bus is really expensive. By the time you've got the depreciation of a double decker, you pay the driver's fee, you pay the fuel costs, and aren't they fun at the minute? You get to a place where your cost per mile can be very, very difficult. And I won't go into the commercialities of it, but if you can imagine getting a taxi and just watching that go up every mile, ching, 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 and then you think, for every concessionary pass holder who gets on the bus and taps, how many of those we need to offset the cost per mile, it starts to get challenging. So things like how much we're spending on glass damage when we're driving through country lanes and branches because there's no vegetation management funding within the local authority, then going through the glass, we're spending £250,000 a year on glass damages, those kind of things. How can we work better with the local authority to reduce the cost of those kind of things? Equally, miles per gallon, have we got the right buses on the right routes and we're driving value? But what we can't do is take cost out and then start to erode the service quality, then customers don't come and use you, and then you've got a revenue problem. So you might take your cost down, but you've taken your revenue down. So we've got to keep revenue per mile up while cost per mile comes down. We have to prioritise our stakeholders. That's why I'm sitting here tonight. It's why I was with Thanet District Council last week. It's why I went to see Noel at Ashford last week. It's why I went to see Kevin in Dover last week. Got to stay close to our stakeholders. We want to do a good job for everybody in the local community, and those people that are advocating for us or challenging bus, I need you to know that we're doing our best. Whether you're pro-bus, anti-bus, whatever your views are on bus, I want you to know that Stagecoach, you've got a bunch of people running it who care, who are trying to do what they can do to make it a better environment for everybody. We've made some massive inroads into our safety performance. Our safety performance around avoidable road traffic accidents has come down significantly over the last year. And we need to continue that. What I don't want is for my business to become complacent because we're on this kind of improving trend. And we've seen the best safety performance over the last 3 or 4 periods that I've seen in my tenure in this role. So I'm determined not to let my team think, we've fixed it, because we need to keep driving that down. It's expensive having accidents. We're not talking catastrophic accidents here, but one of the things we do struggle with is hitting parked objects or stationary objects. That tends to be overhanging trees, vegetation, parked cars, parked illegally. But I'd rather my drivers just held back and waited. So we're doing a good job with that. Fundamentally, we've got to keep running the miles that we said we would. So in the last 3 periods, we have run 98.9% of all our advertised mileage. So we're only losing about 1.1% of our mileage. And don't forget, 60% of the mileage that we lose at the minute is because of traffic congestion. And one of the things I learned in the railway is if you're running from point to point, so you might go from Fenchurch Street to Southend, if your train's 40 minutes late, you probably have a difficult balance to decide whether you're going to terminate that short of Southend and start it right time coming back, or go all the way to Southend late, then start back late and run late all day. And that's the challenge we have in the bus industry. If you've got a bus full of people, if you're running the 17 from Canterbury bus station down to Folkestone, and you get to Etching Hill and you're 30 minutes late, do you terminate there and start back on time and upset everybody that's on the bus and upset everybody that's in Folkestone waiting for the 17 on an hour frequency? Or do you terminate it there, get back to Canterbury right time because you've got a bus station full of people here who want their bus on time? Or if you go all the way to Folkestone late, you're coming back late, you're getting to Canterbury 30 minutes late, by which point those people have got a taxi, or you've lost the love. And the reason you're late in the first place is because there's massive roadworks in Folkestone town centre, because there's levelling up funding, and we're going to have to deal with that for the next 2 years. So it's those kind of tensions. You can't just cancel buses, but equally, if you run late, people stop trusting you. Do you remember at the start, we asked our customers what they wanted? They wanted a reliable bus service that turns up, that does what it says on the tin. So that's the challenge. And that final one, bottom right, time with your manager, is a new initiative we brought in this year, where every single one of our drivers has quality time with their line manager around their personal career development, their interests, how they're finding life. How am I doing as your line manager? Not me personally as the MD, but that opportunity to have a really good conversation with your line manager, not just because you've been sick or because you've bashed your wing mirror, but because somebody cares about you above and beyond your own day-to-day performance. And that's going really well. Here's our trend analysis. I just wanted to share with you that we do monitor millions of KPIs. We don't just stick buses out on the road and hope we're doing well. I won't dwell on them, but our accidents are coming down, our punctuality is going up, our employee turnover, the number of people that leave Stagecoach South East has reduced from 29% to 14% over the last 4 years. And that for me is an indicator of a business that is demonstrating that it cares about its people. 14% turnover is still too many when you've got 1,000 drivers. That's still 150 new ones coming through the system every year. But it was 290 new ones coming through the system every year. Then there's no legacy, loyalty. You don't understand your routes. You don't understand your customers. So retention is really important to us, which is why we make a real song and dance about trying to treat people well. So what we got around the corner that hopefully will make it better for you, for us, for everybody that's working here and using the bus service. My last slide, and then I'll shush and you can ask some questions. One thing I haven't put on here, if you go up to Canterbury bus station, don't know if any of you have been there just recently, but Kent County Council have funded real-time information across the bus station. It makes a massive difference. Yes, we can push people onto the app. Yes, we can try and encourage everybody to look after themselves and be self-sufficient. However, 50% of over 70s don't have a smartphone, and they're a real customer base for us. Equally, 24% of households are now in low-income household categorisation. And if you're in a low-income household, you don't have a car, so you're on one of our buses. You don't have a bank account, so you probably can't buy on the app. You probably want to pay with cash. And you haven't got a mobile phone, or if you have got a mobile phone, the chances are it hasn't got any data. So we do need to push RTI, real-time information, a bit like the railway. You turn up, you have a screen. It's not a glass panel with some weird old timetable from 1972 where you're trying to work out what on earth's going on. So we do need to move with the times. We've also invested in 2 customer helpers at the bus station up there. It's a bit tactical, but it's your city, so it's good for you to know. Jason and Callum, at the cost of about, with add-ons, about £85,000 a year at our cost. And they walk up and down and help people find where their bus is going. They've got their own iPad so they can show people how to use the app. And it's just giving us a bit of a lift because we've got better stuff at the station. About 50% of our whole customer base come through Canterbury bus station. It just goes to show how busy this city is, how important it is. And the vast majority of the people that aren't doing that are in my East Sussex network in Hastings and Eastbourne, so there's no connection here. Ashford come into Canterbury, Dover come into Canterbury, Thanet come into Canterbury, Folkestone come into Canterbury, East Kent Road Car Company, East Kent, very big proportion of our users. So we've got 63 newer vehicles turning up. That takes the average age of our fleet from 11.5 years of age to 9 years of age, which is better, starting to reduce that average fleet age. That's got a nicer vibe to it. That doesn't include the fact that we might just be about to get 50 brand new fully electric vehicles at Dover, which would massively reduce our average fleet age. So I'm excited about that. And that's the second point. It's building that business case to secure that investment, private equity funding of about 25 million quid, and a small contribution from Kent County Council if the money is available. What was called the Zebra Fund, I don't know if you remember that, Zero Emission Bus Fund. The idea is that it helps you bridge the gap between what would be the price of a brand new diesel vehicle compared to what's the price of a brand new electric vehicle. And to be honest, the total cost of ownership says there's not massive a difference now anyway, but it helps me secure investment from my owning group if I can get a small donation from the local authority, because they can see there's a partnership approach. It just pushes us up the investment league table. I think we're going to have much better ticket machines turning up over the next year or two, because we are doing much better in terms of our profit margin. We're not printing money by any stretch of the imagination, but we've come away from being loss making, and therefore our owning group is more prepared to invest in the long-term sustainability, which is cool. We've got a new bus tracking system that's turning up the month after next, which means that when you are looking on your app, if any of you use the Stagecoach app and tracking to see where your bus comes, at the minute, the GPS signal comes from our ticket machine, and if you go over a pothole, of which you might have noticed there are a few in the county of Kent and East Sussex, it knocks the SIM card out the ticket machine, and if you're standing there looking at your app, the bus just vanishes, which is the lunacy of the industry in that very conversation there. The good news is Stagecoach invested about £4 million in this new bit of kit, and upgrading the app and the website. And so what happens on this new system is it takes 3 points of GPS from the bus instead of just the one on the ticket machine. So if the ticket machine one's out for a bit, it will default to the secondary GPS source or the third GPS source. So you're still looking at your bus moving around on your map. It's not disappeared because you've gone over a pothole on the A2. So, and at last, instead of cutting stuff, we are building stuff back. Not loads of stuff, but we've got the X3. We've just increased the frequency. Yes, there was stuff that we had to take off in the first place. We're putting back what we cut, but we're able to because the passenger volumes are there and the customer numbers are there, which is exciting. So it's not just cut to survive. We're now growing back, which is incredibly encouraging. In fact, we were going to put a brand new service. We were going to reinstate the service to Broadoak, which hasn't been around for a good few years, and that was due to be done in the June timetable change this month, and we were going to do a big press release, only to find that the road through Broadoak is shut till September. So had we registered it, we were able to deregister it immediately, but we are going back in September. So Peter there, who's been haranguing us to introduce their bus service back in, has you know, fair play to him. So from September, that'll be back in, another good news story. And then it's back to use it or lose it. So we need the community to use the bus service so that we don't have to then cut it again because no one's on it. And then I guess that last thing is just to reiterate my point for those of you in a position of authority or somewhere where you can shape and influence strategy or thinking. You know, I'm not a genius by any stretch of the imagination, but it is very clear to me that the best transport systems are the ones where there is a relationship between the infrastructure owner and the bus operator. Vertical integration is a model. Franchising is a model, commercially run bus services is a model, local authority running the bus service is a model. The debate around the ownership model is an absolute distraction, right? It doesn't matter if you're a charity, if you're owned by the government, if you're privately funded, it's a distraction. What's important is that there is funding available to put bus lanes in place and get people out of their cars and onto buses. If you believe in bus, it is physical priority measures that will get people out of the cars and onto the bus. It's not whether it's franchised or not. It's not whether it's privately run or not. It's not whether it's a charity or not. It's how do you keep buses moving? Because if you're stuck in a traffic jam behind 4 or 5 other buses in amongst a load of cars, it's a mush. So that's kind of my view. Bottom right, we just invested a load of money in a central control team so that we can have 24-hour coverage, so that people are sat there looking at every single bus on the map at all times. And I nicked that from Brad as well, Paul, because when I turned up, there wasn't any kind of central control. Every little depot had its own control till about 6 o'clock in the evening, and then they're kind of left to their own devices. So we've got rigorous people focusing on every single bus movement and making strategic decisions and tactical decisions on whether there's late running and whether to offset cancellations against punctuality. So we're kind of doing all we can. And we will continue to do so, and hopefully we will see more customers come and use us as we make it a more attractive bus service. But recognise we're certainly not there yet. And yeah, so that's me. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. We've got some hands coming up, so we'll get around to that. Congratulations on the uptick in performance.
Welcome.
So we recognise that. I want to start with a question myself because I'm chairman now. So,
So you can
you mentioned about building services back up. I think that will be a thing of interest to many of us. Talk us through the route of influence to discuss which routes that might be. We'll all be very biased to which ones they should be, but what's the route to influence that outside of giving you money?
Oh, it's a very insightful question, really. So I guess, so Kent County Council, decent bunch of people. The officers are great. They're established bus people. Effectively, they say to us, where do you think there is the opportunity for growth? In a traditional model, I would like to be able to speculate, run at a loss for a year, 2 years, 3 years, but then have the bathtub curve where you come in, invest early, and then watch the growth. The challenge with doing that for me and a lot of my peers is that to hit the investment threshold for your own level of investment, to take that hit on the losses early materially affects your ability to secure investment. So you want to hold your line and make sure you're not detrimentally impacting your financial performance early on. So Kent have reached out to all the operators and said, have you got any ideas? Where do you think growth is an opportunity? And then, we're pretty open book. We're happy to share all of our data, as are the other bus companies. So Kent will then have a look at where they think the best investment is viable. Where do we think we can? The idea is to get back to self-funding services as quickly as possible. So you're not constantly underpinning bus services with taxpayers' funding, because you guys will know better than most. It's a finite resource. We've not all got a plethora of taxpayers' funding to support everything. So the bus model is how quickly can we get that to be self-sustainable? So, without talking in detail to Dan and Steve at the council, we've submitted a list that we think would be a really sensible investment for Kent County Council. We will run it as best we can. If it's ours, most of these then go out to tender. What we tend to do is bid in a way that we can run it, and we can run it to grow it without having to take lots of losses early on. So we'll submit a list. Other bus operating companies will submit a list. We can shape and influence through conversation, through data submission, through trying to prove why this is the thing to invest in. And then the local authority will take a view on what the best one is. But we can part fund, we can support, we can make other gestures towards that service feasibility. So there are various things that we can do to try and lobby for the things that we think the money should be spent on. It's quite difficult because the vast majority of money is already gone. So you heard me talk about the 66, 67 services that are already funded. The majority, when we see this big announcement about bus grant, I think from memory, there was about £14 million for revenue and about 11 million for capital, or the other way around. I can't remember off the top of my head. The vast majority of that revenue pot has already been committed to the services that are already needing that funding. So we all got excited and then we realised, it's already largely gone. However, the way Kent built their business case, we were funded to about 125% of revenue funding for last year's model. So there are other things we can do. There's quite a lot of money spent by Kent County Council in supporting the Kent Travel Saver. So a lot of that bus revenue money is spent capping that. I know a lot of people that spend money on that in that relationship with Kent County Council. One, either think they're giving me the money, it isn't, it's gone to the local authority and then they reimburse me in the same way we do for concessionary pass holders. But a lot of them don't realise how much financial support from the bus grant goes into keeping the Kent Travel Saver annual price down. I don't think we always do a particularly good job with marketing or advertising just how much value comes from the bus grant. So, so does that answer your question? It's a bit of a long answer.
Bit of both. Everyone's hand shot up at the same time. So what I'm going to do is swing around this way. Mrs. Nolan.
That was very interesting, Joel, and thank you for taking us through that particular journey. bus lanes, I'm very pro bus. Bus lanes in a medieval city, that's not going to happen, is it? It's got to be the new developments and so forth. But I am very aware that we have a great number of secondary schools in Canterbury. I've counted up, and there's 5 in my division alone, and also Canterbury College is in my division, and they just stream from the bus station. So bus provision in the morning seems to be very good, but not in the afternoon. And there's been lots of complaints from schools saying that it's more difficult for the children to get back in the afternoon. So it seems that you've got it pretty tight to get them there, but not so much getting back. And I think that's part of the reason why during the summer holidays, congestion in Canterbury is a lot less, because there's not people taking their children to school, because it comes back to your point about trust and confidence in the service. So if thinking back to when my kids were at secondary school, we were living in Herne Bay and had to come to Canterbury. I used to worry. I used to get in the car and go out and get them if they missed the bus or they couldn't get on the bus or whatever. So how can you tackle that particular problem, which is getting the school children home in the same efficient way that you seem to be able to get them there? I don't understand how it works so well getting them there, but coming back it seems not to. And the second point is, I'm here as KCC member, but I'm also a cabinet councillor on Canterbury City Council, and community safety is part of my portfolio. And the bus station is one of the areas where we have a lot of problems. So I'm really pleased to hear about your 2 ambassadors. You know, do they work shifts, or are they only there during the day?
So do earlies and lates, the 2 customer helpers. They're good people. They're trained in first aid. We've got 24/7 coverage at Canterbury bus station with the control team too. Yes, it is a hotspot. It's better than it was. We've actually funded 2 community wardens as well. So we pay Kent County Council to increase the number of community wardens that they employ, partly so that they'll go into schools and talk about bus use on our behalf, but partly because it's the right thing to do. Not necessarily based at Canterbury bus station. They're a bit of everywhere, really. But yeah, I'll have another think about the bus station as well. We're just spending a bit of money putting CCTV, upgrading that at the bus station. It's a better place. It feels better. The investment in the RTI, just modernising it, gives it a different ambience. But I definitely concur. I've seen and heard some things. My office is there. If I'm working late, then there's been some. Last summer there was some borderline riots between various kids from different schools that was quite frightening to watch. School kids. So my partner's kids get the bus into your ward. My children get the bus from where they live with their mum and also where they live with me. So I'm not, I really know the story of bus use. I'm interested in your PM view. I'm not sure our data says that, but if that's what you're feeling, that there are different. Again, a bit like the railway, the morning peak is very confined. Everybody's got to be where they've got to be at that specific time. So you fly in, albeit schools do unilaterally change their start times. And when you've got a bus service that's serving 4 or 5 schools, and suddenly the headmaster's writing to you because you're stupid because all of his pupils or her pupils are late to school now because they changed their start and finish times without telling you, and then you've got a 70-day notice period. It's frustrating. But schools do tend to finish at different times, and even age groups within that very school will finish at different times. So catering for each of those locations is challenging. But I do get the point. Like, we will always fine tune it. The other thing is we don't always know when we specify the timetable, because we have to do it 70 days out, who's going to what school. So the challenge of schools is actually unique to Kent. It probably as an outcome of the grammar school system. Again, it's a philosophical view on whether you like grammar school systems or not. I think the best thing about Kent is the grammar school system. I think the worst thing about Kent is the grammar school system. So, you know, you pick a lane. But we'll have another look at your area in particular. If you want to drop me a note, what have you got in there? Langton, both Archbishop,
Both the Langtons, both the Barton Court and
Barton
Barton
Court,
Manor.
yeah.
St
Althams at the
Anselm's
top.
particularly have a problem in the
Okay.
afternoon
Yeah.
because the buses are full by the time they get to the St Anselm stop.
Okay.
Which
And
is
we're
a particular
talking, all right,
problem.
so the 16, the 17, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. But I will drop you a line.
Yeah, please do. Thank you. Yeah, it is. I guess you're kind of trying to do your best with what you got. You know, a lot of the time you'd want to run more buses. Again, one of the things that people say to me is, "Oh, what are you doing? Why do you run all these double deckers around the city all day with no one on them?" It's because between 7:30 and 9 and 3:15 and 5, they're absolutely full and standing. And what I can't afford to do is then put them away and bring out loads of small ones. So I've got double the depreciation, double the cost base. In the rail industry, you'll run 12-car trains in the morning peak and cut 8 of them off, put them in the shed, run 4 all day on the same frequency, but significantly reduce your outgoings, and then couple them back up again in the evening and on you go again. We can't sort of halve the bus, so we have to keep that going. And then when you do have a capacity issue and you might want to run another one more bus will cost you somewhere about £250,000 per annum, which means you immediately need to generate at least another 130, 140,000 passenger journeys on that one bus alone, when actually they're already on the other bus. So it makes it's a difficult balance to strike. But thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Prentice, you had a question.
And thanks for coming along to speak to us, Joel. And it's really good to hear the good news around as the chair mentioned, the uptick in performance, and a more optimistic sort of tone being struck. Because I know from our conversations in the past how difficult it has been, and not just in bus but in rail. But rail's obviously had very different circumstances, I think, in terms of its overall support from government. My colleagues, Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Moses, will be thrilled to hear about. Is it the number 7 returning to Broad Oak?
Yeah, eventually.
They will be thrilled. I will pass on the good news to them because I know that's something they've been pushing for quite a while.
Tell them to use it.
Yes, and I think that message is heard loud and clear. And I've been spending part of the day at least pointing out politely to people that bus use is up in Canterbury. I would be interested. So one of my questions would be, what kind of an uptick have you seen in patronage and passenger numbers? Or is it just steady at the moment? Because I'm on the understanding that it is sort of going up. We've certainly seen park and ride use go up, for example, although I know that's measured separately. I'm interested in the investment in new vehicles because obviously a new shiny bus that's got that new bus smell or has been refurbished, for example, is attractive to the passenger. We know that. We know how important that is in public transport overall. So I am also interested in what you're saying about the investment in Dover and what sort of impact that would have on Canterbury, because obviously if you are sending buses through up the A2 via wherever along the way, do we get a sort of a payoff? Do we get a benefit of those lower emission vehicles coming into Canterbury, and what sort of benefit might we see? Because I'm very aware that our area is a lot of it is fed by Herne Bay Depot, isn't it? I think so. I know we get buses coming in from Ashford, we get buses coming in from Herne Bay, we get buses coming in from Dover, but I think the fact that we don't have any electric vehicles at the moment is more and more noticeable, because you see more and more electric cars and electric vans on the road, and the pressure is constantly there to electrify, and particularly in a sensitive historic city such as Canterbury, and not to mention the other parts of our district. So I'm interested in the impact that will have. Hopefully you do get that big investment as well. I think the other point I was going to make was, around the £3 fare cap, and obviously that's something that central government have introduced. And from a cost of living perspective, it's fantastic. I'm just interested in what impact that has had on Stagecoach as a business. I know it's a scheme that you have signed up to. Not every bus company signs up to it, and Stagecoach have opted to sign up to it. So fair play and well done for doing that. But have you noticed what impacts have you noticed from the £3 fare cap? And are there other comments you'd wish to make on that? Thank you.
No, you're welcome. So the first question about patronage actually links quite nicely to the last point about the £3 fare cap. So we were growing back really well. Patronage was definitely on the up. In the Herne Bay Garage area, which, as Paul said, predominantly is the provider for the Canterbury City region. But when £2 went to £3, we saw an immediate downturn. We were losing about 10% of commercial passengers year on year every period. Interestingly, our concessionary passenger growth continued. So we would see the market that aren't affected by price continuing to come back post-COVID at about 4% year on year. And commercial passengers that we get a lot more money for than the concessionary pass holders, because we are funded for no net loss, no net gain, we were seeing disappearing. So I'm a fan of the £3 fare cap because it encourages bus use and it helps with cost of living. It definitely had a detrimental impact going from £2 to £3. It's quite difficult from a business management perspective to have to negotiate wage inflation with 1,500 employees and a strong union without any levers to reimburse yourself for those costs. So I'm just doing a pay deal with Eastbourne Depot at the minute. They have a certain aspiration. RPI is not what their aspiration is. They want more than that. So I'm trying to find terms and conditions to buy off them. I can't push those costs onto the customer because then I'll lose my customers. And in fact, we were due a fare increase in April, and my new commercial director, Catherine, decided not to put the fares up at all because the yield on the fare increase is so low because you see so many people going that we just don't want to do that. So I think at some point we'll have to, because you can't just keep your fares as they are forever while your wages are going up and your fuel costs are going up and your materials are going up and your glass damage is going up. But you broadly yield a quarter of what your wage inflation or your fare inflation is, and then so you've lost 75% of that uplift. So it was it's been difficult because it's almost you got your hands tied behind your back because you're regulated, but then I'm pro helping people and cost of living. So depends if you ask me as a bus managing director or as a human, I guess, and trying to overset the two. The middle point about electric vehicles, I'm so desperate to see electric vehicles in Stagecoach South East. We've worked so hard to try and get ourselves to a place where we can encourage investment. Kent County Council and Dover District Council on their fast track scheme, which is put 5 EVs in Dover, meant that my electric vehicle fleet is now 1.25%, which is great because it was 0. I'm not going to get too excited about 1.25, but the good news is it's meant the cabling and the electric infrastructure is in place at Dover Depot. Only on a small scale, but the capital investment required to electrify Dover Depot is much smaller now because we've started. And that's why Dover's gone on the list. Not because it's like a super duper depot, although it is great, but it's already got some electric capacity. Canterbury City would see a decent uplift of electric vehicles coming into Canterbury. So the 15, Dover to Canterbury, the 16, Folkestone Fast to Canterbury, the 17, Folkestone, Elam Valley, Bridge, Canterbury, all of those would be fully electric vehicles. So you will start to see a lot more going on. And then, as you say, Herne Bay resources the majority. So you've got the 400, 600, the Triangle, the Unibus, those all come from Herne Bay. but we can cascade all of the better vehicles from Dover that are there currently into Herne Bay and Ashford and the surrounds. But Herne Bay or Thanet would be the next ones on the list. They were originally on the list with Dover, but there's only a finite pot of capital about, so Herne Bay and Thanet fell off the list. However, if we see the growth we're seeing, if the concessionary passengers continue to come back, if the patronage burn-off that we're seeing continues to slow in the way that we're seeing it, I am excited for Herne Bay Depot and the potential for that to become electrified. I don't know if you know where it is. It's right by Herne Bay Railway Station. It's not a particularly big part of land, but the electrification capacity and potential is there. So that's where I'd be going next to try and secure the funding if we can get Dover done. Thanet the same. The 8 comes in from Thanet. That's a decent service. It does well. So those kind of things all count. So yeah, hopefully that answers your 3 points.
Councillor Bookman.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for that, Joel. So, my name's Dane. I'm the councillor for Wincheap and Thannington. That will lead me on to the question that you can probably guess what I'm going to say. So, the last bus from Canterbury along the Ashford Road is about 6:30, 6:35.
Yeah.
And obviously, residents would love to get the bus into Canterbury, but they'd like to get home as well. Yeah. And it does cause so many issues for such a long time.
Yeah.
And obviously with the news about the number 7 bus, I think you mentioned just now in Surrey, that would be, or Broad Oak, that's great. So would there ever be a chance looking forward? I know it'll get down to, as you say, like service and money and things like that, to look into that again, because obviously it is important. But another question is, it's really your thoughts on having a bus service ready for residents from day one on new developments. So if there was a possible new development with a possible bus stops in place, for residents to have confidence in the bus service, as you say, it would have to be ready from day one, because otherwise they would start using their cars to get to places. So how would you go about that? Because if you have to collect data to run a service, the data won't be there because it's a new build. And obviously there are, there's different new builds in the areas like Whitstable Heights and places like that could do with buses. And yeah, so it's that's what, how do you get the bus service in place if you haven't got the data to back up running it? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a helpful conversation actually, given the role you guys find yourselves in. So the first one, yes, absolutely. We'll always look to try and build back. It's difficult if the funding isn't available, but as things become more attractive, we want to be able to have later services. One of the things that the BSIP originally was trying to do was increase more services, run later, trial stuff, the stuff that's now the bus grant. I mean, in East Sussex, lots of additional services were funded through the BSIP, additional money, and we did them for 18 months under East Sussex County Council's aspirations to try and build back. And then the funding ran out and we had to take them all off the road again. So sometimes it's worse doing stuff and then removing it than it was not doing it in the first place. But I do know that we need to have a look over that side of the city. The one that runs out to Ashford is highly non-profitable. We had to stop serving Y. Then we found some clever interworkings to. I think the last service from Y to Ashford's about 2:00 in the afternoon. So, and then I think you're only there 5 minutes for it to come back. So I get the point, but I will take that away. I'll have a look with the team, and David and I can have a look at it. New build developments are a challenge. Section 106 is a challenge. That's what it's there for, is to invest from day one, or certainly from a point where occupancy is high enough to release the funds that the developer commit for things like bus frequencies. Some developers are brilliant and are true to their word. Other developers spend a load of time then arguing about why they shouldn't have to pay the Section 106. And other frustrations. So Finbury, for example, we've been waiting for as long as I've been in the job to run between Finbury and the other development up the top of Ashford that the name escapes me, Bridgefield, and there's a big block of concrete on the bus lane because the road remains unadopted, and the rigmarole of trying to get that taken into local ownership so that we can run, and it's preventing us from putting a bus service in Finbury or Bridgefield to take all those kids to school at Natch and the North School. So it is a frustration. There are lots of hoops to jump through. And that kind of is the principle. So we don't have to worry about demonstrating that there are 12.8 people for that bus and therefore it's going to cover its operating costs and we can go for it because the data doesn't exist. But the theory behind 106 is the same as the bus grant money. You put the bus on the road, people know it's there, particularly in new build developments that are deliberately designed so that there aren't loads of cars and you can't park on the road infrastructure. So I guess that my ask to you to play that back as the councillors is to, whenever you're in a position where people are asking about Section 1, is you're making sure that the developer is contributing sufficient funds so that we could run a bus service from day one, with a view that it then tapers because revenue grows, and at some point the Section 106 finishes and the commercial network becomes sustainable. Again, whether it's a franchise or a local authority run service or a commercial service, doesn't really matter. What you need to have is money coming in needs to be equal to or greater than money going out. And that's what 106 should bridge, that kind of waterfall chart at the outset until you get to that magic line, and then you just crack on. So yeah, I think that's, and a lot of the developers are very pro that and really decent and have integrity and also want to make money and do it all right. And others are finding things more and more and more challenging, and then are having to try and strip back the things they committed to doing in a view to make things more viable from a profitability perspective. So, I don't run a housing development firm, but I'd imagine the reason why they do what they do in those more difficult ones is because their margins are non-existent. Or not, but yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Mr. Heaver, I think you were next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Joel. That's really, really valuable. And the first thing I'm going to say for ask my question is this is so valuable. If there was any opportunity to have briefings and Q&As with either you or your senior staff on a regular basis at KCC or indeed here, I certainly would find that immensely valuable, and I suspect a lot of my colleagues would too. So thank you very much indeed. My question is about one of your the 34 million journeys that you're responsible for. So forgive me on that one. It was last Saturday, 11:02 from Sandpiper Road, and the 5A bus didn't turn up. Sorry, and my residents, or the residents in my division, were very cross because they felt they hadn't been consulted about the change of route. It hadn't been there hadn't been sufficient notice in advance, and they were quite cross about it. So that's part A of the question. Perhaps you can comment on that at the end. Part B of my question is, I thought, well, I'm their councillor for the division and for, not for that ward, but for the adjacent ward too. I could sort this out for them. So I went to the KCC officers that you deal with regularly, who are bus experts, as you quite rightly say, and said, well, look, I've got a lot of unhappy residents here. Something's changed. I don't know why it's changed. They're saying there hasn't been very good a consultation or advertising of the change. What shall I do? And the KCC officer said, why don't you email customer services at stagecoach.co.uk? So the two parts of my question, the micro question is, could you just let me know, please, what happened about 5A only going to Tesco's and stopping going to Canterbury, because it has affected a lot of residents in Seasalter, particularly elderly and disabled residents. And the second bit is, how can I, as a councillor, best engage with Stagecoach in a positive, constructive way, either to get information about something as nitty-gritty as that, or B, to feedback, positive or negative feedback from residents in my division?
So I'll answer the second one first. From my perspective, if I was a parish councillor in the last place I worked, appreciate it's different context, but always email me or Catherine. So you're in positions of responsibility. Don't email Perth, our customer service centre, because by the time it's gone around the houses, just by all means come directly to me or Catherine, joel.mitchell@stagecoachbus.com if you ever have something or a view. If I can't do anything about it, I'll tell you. And I'll come back to you on the 5A. So that was this recent timetable change, just happened. Okay. I mean, it'll be patronage based, but I'll need to talk to David about why he's made that specific change.
I'd really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
would it be okay if you could share your contact details and the slideshow after the meeting? Would that be all right?
I'll definitely do my contact details. I might have to have another look at the slideshow.
Okay.
There's nothing commercially sensitive on there.
Oh, I
which
see.
John's
Okay.
now
Maybe
selling.
I have to redact a few bits. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Quick question for me. Well, sorry. Also share Councillor Heaver's request for the slides. I couldn't see them from here. My aged eyesight, I'm afraid. I share the points on my colleagues made about the restoration of the services in Broad Oak. That will come as good news. And you also referred to the BSIP, and I'm assuming those two are not. They're linked. And does that mean that you've got a forward BSIP that is you're looking to implement over the next 12 months, 5 years, subject to certain business performance? In other words, what's the next benefit that we get after Broad Oak? Is there a restoration of services that have been cut to places like Broomfield? What's the next benefits that we can see, and is that something that you publish?
So I'm 99.9% sure that we're doing Broad Oak off our own back. That's not funded. That's us just doing the right thing and trying to grow commercially because David thinks we can have another go at it, our network planner. So the BSIP's dead. So I'm confusing us by using obsolete language. So the bus service improvement plan or fund, which was the BSIP, has been replaced by the bus grants. So the bus grant is issued to KCC and local authorities. And this is what I've been talking about, the 125% of last year's rate with the 11 million, 14 million split capital versus revenue. I think it's the capital is the biggest slug. And this is the frustration, is that the vast majority of it's spent. So to the chairman's question about how do we shape and influence where that money's going to go, we've been asked to pull together a list of services we think could, at some point become commercially viable with some short-term bus grant funding. It's partly used to support the Kent Travel Saver. There are also some aspirations, I think, to do some travel offers over the summer, some fares promotions, which would be great. The challenge with fares promotions is that they are very short-termist. The whole point of the bus grant is it provides long-term sustainable growth. What we saw in East Sussex was a fare capping of £1 and £2 on the shorter journeys to then supplement the central government £3. And it was brilliant for the year that it was in place, and the money ran out. It all got pulled and everyone's cross about it. They all think it's my fault. Everyone hates me, and we've lost about 15% of our customers. So the sustainability piece is important. But if there is something particularly that you think would drive or is available to grow, same for all of you, really. It comes back to your point, Councillor. Tell us. The beauty of having councillors who are engaged with transport and know their local community is we've got the best possible chance of identifying an area where there is really growth, rather than people saying, I've not got a bus service here, I want a bus service, and then nobody uses it because nobody really wanted it. It's a bit like a library, nobody wants to lose their library. But when you ask somebody when they last used it, they don't, because they don't. So if you genuinely think there's a group of people here, or that this could become something, or there's a new development, because we can't see it all. There might be a new housing development, or there's a new supermarket being built, or there's something happening that's going to drive growth, that helps. Because what's always surprises me is no one seems to have one version of the truth as a kind of big, all-seeing, all-dancing overseer. So the more you can bring people together, because transport's a full system and community's a full system, the more voices that we can have feeding into that kind of big pot, the better the vision and the better the understanding of what's necessary. So that would be my feedback there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I used the phrase BSIP earlier, but you'll have your own development plan, I guess, subject to your own business performance that we self-funded. And I'm just wondering, would that be visible to us?
Yeah, I'm really happy to share my thoughts on it. So we've got kind of what we've got golden assets, which if I don't protect those, really prevent us from ever having any kind of sustainable future, because we self-subsidize because we're nice. We're not ruthless horrors. As long as we're making enough money to drive investment, that's my job, is to get the balance right. Then we've got silver assets, and that probably is to your point, and they are services where I think with some proper love and a bit more marketing and some engagement with the local community, we might be able to grow back or increase frequency. And then we've got all the rest of the stuff, which is quite a lot, which we are kind of hanging on in there and really working hard. One of the challenges we've got is if you end up cancelling the same stuff all the time because it's high frequency. So the traffic commissioner doesn't like it when we cancel services that only run every 2 hours, for example. So, but there won't be anybody on it. It's being run because we're just trying to connect that to that. So if you haven't got a bus for that because it's broken down, because you haven't got any investment and your bus is 13 years old and it's a bit unreliable, instead of cancelling that, you might take one of the uni buses off, or you'll take a triangle that's 400 off because it's on a 20-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute frequency of the Thanet Loop. And then suddenly you start to erode your core products that are there to look after everybody because you're trying to one offset one against the other. So yeah, that can be quite challenging, but I'm very happy to share those routes that we think are sort of mid-range and right for growth if we can work together in partnership with you and your constituents.
Thank you. It'd be good to see that.
Okay.
So, Jude. To you.
Hello, this is my first JCB, so thanks for having me. I would be remiss if I did not take this golden opportunity while the head of Stagecoach is here to say, please can we have a bus along Rough Common Road again?
Noted.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'll always look at reinstating things and making sure we're running where we need to be. Yeah, I don't want to bust the business by running things at a massive loss, but equally, if the opportunity is there, we'll put them back. So that's what we're here to do. Thank you.
Ms. Cummings.
I'm sorry. I'm here to represent COUC, but I'm also a parish councillor for Hackington, where the bus that runs through Tyler Hill and everything has been reduced in frequency, and that causes a lot of hardship. I mean, we have an ageing population who rely on the buses, and they rely on being able to get to and from Canterbury. I understand as of this month it's quite reduced. Yes, I've been asked to raise this issue and say, can we have our buses back?
Okay.
Agree, that one as well.
And thank you.
Mr. Sol, I think you had your hand up. But all of you had your hand up. I'll get round to all of you, I promise.
Flashing shares a 2-minute answer. Yeah, thank you. Two points. First one is a bit more specific. The number 17 route. I could have got the 17 in tonight, but I can't get a 17 home, which is why I'm in my car. A few years ago, you took away the evening service. There was quite a big campaign against that. I had meetings in the office in Canterbury with a number of campaigners, and we were shared the information on the how profitable the route was, and it was pretty close. You only needed it was 5 or 6 additional passengers in the evening to make that route worthwhile running and profitable. As we're getting an electric bus on that route, presumably running an electric bus back a couple of times is going to be a lot cheaper than running a diesel bus, because you're only effectively paying for a bit of electricity to charge it up and the bus driver.
What's the score, Dan?
Reduced
So-
to 57 for 5.
So if I'd hope that you will look at running an evening service back there. The villages along the Elam Valley were really keen on this, would have helped promote the route. And I think a lot of people don't use the bus during the day because they know they can't get it back in the evening. So I hope you will look at the 17. The other one is about Thannington. You mentioned in your presentation about how valuable buses are in deprived areas. Thannington is one of the most deprived areas. You also mentioned Section 106 money. Well, the developers ever paid the money to Kent County Council. They've got £750,000 ready to run a bus service. The Section 106 agreement said a 20-minute bus service, but KCC have said that they've been in negotiations with Stagecoach, and it's not enough money to run a service at the moment. So I think that is really disappointing for residents. You know, the money is there. Why can't we have a bus service? And it doesn't need. You talked about, you know, the issues with going all the way to Ashford. Why can't there be a bus service that does a short loop? You know, perhaps goes from Canterbury through to Charlton, and then comes round and goes back again. You know, something like that would do instead. So. Yeah, can I have a bit more information from you on that as to why the money's there? Someone must have costed that project at the beginning, but we haven't got a bus service.
So I didn't know that. I mean, that about the Section 106 for Thannington, and I guess the development is the one that's just off the side of the A2 there. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I'll
Saxon Fields development. Yeah.
let me go and have a look. I mean, great. That's exactly right. That's the kind of thing we need to know. You know, selfishly, I live there in Station Road West. My lad's got a job in the Woolpack, you know, in Chilham. He can't get the bus. He's on the train all the time. It's infrequent, him getting home late. So, yeah, I'm not immune to the same challenges. I'll go and talk to the officers at KCC, and that's available. That's 750.
I've had it confirmed, but I'm a Kent County Council. I've had it confirmed, and money's all been paid over by developers. I know the exact figure down to 20 pence, how much they've got sitting there, and Kent County Council officers have told me that the excuses are, if you like, oh, passenger numbers aren't as high as we were. We've had COVID. We can't really afford to run a bus service yet with that money. Perhaps when another development comes online a bit further on, which could be another 6 or 7 years away, they might run a service. But all the time that money is sitting in the bank account, and I would have thought for £750,000 you could kickstart some sort of service to Thannington, even if it's not a 20-minute service, just a half-hour service, or as we've been talked about, an evening service or something else. Don't let that money sit in a bank account.
No, I mean, I agree with the principle entirely. I won't get into the detail of it, but that thank you. That sounds.
We are minuting these details, so we'll send them over to you because I recognise you have to take these away. Councillor Thomas, did you have a question? Well, I'm doing it the way that I'm seeing you. I did say at the start I would do it that way.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I mean, I literally live in Fleetwood Avenue, which backs onto the bus depot in Herne Bay. One of the things to do, and you have covered it a little bit, is I don't know how you're going to put the electric infrastructure in there without having to dig up a load of concrete and put channels in and stuff like that. But I'm sure there's obviously a more simple way of doing it. But now you're going to put the charging points in for the buses. That's something, looking at it, is I'm a bit confused about. I don't know how. It wasn't even, when it was built, it wasn't, electric buses weren't even thought of really, which is a shame. I'm going to put a bit of a negative spin on buses. I live in Herne Bay. I represent Heronwald, which is in Herne Bay. A lot of my residents actually don't come into Canterbury because it takes too long. It's a faff. They'll go to Bluewater or they go to Westwood Cross, and it's to go to Canterbury. For me and my wife going to Canterbury, it's £12 return. Right, and then I've got to pay parking on top of that. So people don't want to do that, and they may use the bus, but instead of paying the £12, they'll pay the £12 in fuel and go to Bluewater. So and I've said this ever since I've been a councillor, unless bus travel is greatly reduced. And I'm saying, when I was in Spain, it was £1 a bus journey. Until something like that happens, and it's not your business infrastructure, it's got to come from government or whatever, then I never really see it working. And that's why we do see buses driving around most of the time with fewer people on. Just my opinion. Thank you.
I mean, that definitely for me, there's a pendulum swing between so the cost per mile is what it is. The buses cost X, staff costs X, Y, materials cost Z, fuel. So that it, yeah, okay. So the point I'm making is taxpayer funding versus commercial funding. And I think that's the point you're making. So if you're talking about central government, so Transport for London, brilliant model, bus lanes everywhere, high frequency, underpinned by £1 billion a year of taxpayer funding. So if we want that level of frequency and we want that level of quality, if the money to pay for it doesn't come from the customer, it's going to have to come from subsidy. I think for me, in the moment, if we can improve our service quality, then we can attract more customers. Cost of tickets is definitely an issue, but I don't think we've exhausted getting people on the bus who wouldn't find that cost prohibitive, but service quality affects that. And then if you've got more people on the bus, then you can start to reduce the amount of money each individual's paying because it's covering the cost of operation. So, it's a difficult one. So I get the point. I think it's fair. I think it's a fair point.
Councillor Watkins, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, good to see you, Joel. And I've got a lot of sympathy for comments about the bus industry, and in particular, agree with you on your point about bus priority. Former life, I was chair of Fast Track, and we had the very successful scheme up around Dartford and Ebbsfleet, built on bus priority. Every route, bus priority for significant sections, and you probably know the stat, but I was told, because I'd recently become chair, that was the first bus route in the whole country after COVID to grow its passengers back to its pre-COVID level. And even by 2023, 24, which was when I ceased that role, they'd added like 20% passenger numbers on the pre-COVID position, and it's all built on bus priority, and that's kind of proof of the pudding, isn't it? I just want to put onto your radar one from my own ward, because it includes a bus priority element, and it builds on what Dane was saying earlier. It's a new development in Greenhill ward. It's the Red Row estate, which is almost fully built, down to the last kind of 10% of new houses going in on that one, a big estate, as you know. And that was built with a bus priority gate in the middle of it on Randall Way. That's constructed. Residents regularly contact me and my colleagues on the other side of the estate, which is Herne and Broomfield ward, saying, when's the bus service coming? We put it before on your radar, or maybe one of your colleagues. Given it's got bus priority measure, given that it only needs the bus to add on quite a small extra loop through that, because of course you've got a huge number of bus services going through that area because it's the triangle route. I just wonder if that's one that could be looked at. Appreciate, these developments were planned so long ago, that even I wasn't a councillor. Who knows exactly why there wasn't any Section 106 subsidy put in to that, but there is a bus gate, and it was the intention that a bus company, essentially yourselves, would run the route through. And I think it's worth another look, just because residents contact us and say we'd like to use that bus, and it'd be easier to take the bus, partly because there's a bus gate in the main spine road through the estate. So I hope you've got the capacity to look at that and all the other ones that have rightly been mentioned this evening. Cheers.
Well, thank you very much. I'll definitely have a look. I can't sit here and moan about bus priorities not being in place, and then when we have got bus priorities, not at least explore why we're not making the most of them. But I mean, the 106 will be a challenge if there's not been any available. But I'll definitely go to. We've only got David Morton, who's our network planning manager for the Herne Bay area, is really, really good, top man. Has the capacity of one person. He he does very good network changes. We've seen a really good improvement in our punctuality for the Canterbury network. He's just finished one, so these conversations are helpful, right? Because I can say to David, look, can you have a look at this, and this, and he will go and do that now. So lobbying, to your point earlier, lobbying us is important in the same way that we will lobby KCC. So thank you.
It's taken a while to get to you, Mr. Ricketts, because as I look at you you're on the far right, you see. So, but over to you.
And you. No. I mean, this must be the record for the longest it's taken me to speak at a JTB. An hour and a half in, and it's the first time I've said anything. It's crazy. Thank you very much for coming, Joel. And I think a lot of the points have been made. And I will actually say to your point earlier on that Chris and Catherine were very quick to respond when we got in touch about the number 5 as well. And I'm hoping to have a conversation so that they are already on the case on that one. I will echo the call for the 27, but not from self-interest as a Rough Common Road resident, but that was the only bus that actually stopped at both of our railway stations. And I think you mentioned earlier on in terms of joined up stuff. Now, I've recently recovered from 3 years as the figurehead of the bus first strategy in Canterbury and have taken my beatings in this chamber for that over some period of time. So I understand a lot of the issues you talked about. But the one thing that came up from people time and time again, and you touched on it tonight, is that join up between transport providers. And I loved your analogy of the difference between, rail companies speak to the people who run the track, but bus companies and the people who run their track. There's a massive disconnect there, which I think is a good point. But actually, having bus services that extend around the rest of the city, so at the minute it's only the 21 and the Uni 2 from one very small part of the city that go to our HS1 mainline rail station. Having regular, reliable services going to Canterbury West in particular, but also Canterbury East, in the morning when people are getting the train to London would make a huge difference to those people who at the moment are forced to drive in or other routes. So it's just a plea really to look at those connections, particularly with Canterbury West, because you have to get off at St Dunstan's in order to walk to the station, and I have done that sprint from St Dunstan's to Canterbury West a number of times, hoping that you can get through the gates before your train arrives. I think that would be the big thing when you're looking at places to reopen, is looking at reinstating some of those services to Canterbury West. But thank you very much, and I will echo Stuart's call that we'd love to see you here more often. Obviously, the new chair is incredibly effective at getting you to come along. I wasn't able to deliver that in my tenure. But no, it really is much appreciated. And I have to say that when I contacted the team, they've always been really quick to respond, and I do feel very listened to by the team. If not always, that they can provide what I ask them. But yeah, thank you.
I'll send that to you as well. Mr. Milverhill, we'll circle back to you for the final question.
Cheers, thank you, Chair. And excellent news on that Broadoak service coming back. As the Stowe KCC councillor, that's going to put a lot of smiles on people's faces. I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one's regarding the new electric vehicles. What is the weight difference between the new electric vehicles against their equivalent models? And if they're significantly heavier, whilst it's going to save you pence or pounds per mile, is it going to have a negative effect on our highways network, therefore increasing taxpayers' costs in that respect? And with the push for bus lanes and wanting to get them rolled out, I work as a blue light driver in another county, and they are a hindrance. And generally, they're used by Stagecoach, Arriva, Go Ahead, what have you, as nothing more than break points for lunch and off-road parking. So buses aren't flowing through them smoothly. They're creating congestion because they're having to try and get out into the main carriageway, and it actually slows down our response times. So if we have a rollout of bus lanes throughout Kent, what Stagecoach South East going to do to make sure that they're not going to be constantly clogged like they are in other counties? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a new one on me. I mean, the reason I'm so pro bus priority is that what I've come to learn is the best cities in the UK for transport, particularly bus, are commonly acknowledged to be Brighton, Reading, Edinburgh and London, and they are places that have got a lot of bus lanes, bus priority measures, which enables investment. I mean, if you go to Brighton, they've done it two-pronged. It was a political thing because it was a Green Party city for a long time. It costs you £38 to go and park in Brighton for the day now. You have to get a bus, and then there are loads of bus lanes everywhere because everyone's getting on the bus because they can't afford to drive in. So it does work. I've not, there are timing points on our route where a bus driver is required to wait until they've reached time. Not everywhere, probably 1 in 20 bus stops is a timing point. And given congestion challenges, it's very unusual for anybody to turn up early. So we can't, I would, in terms of your point, I would make it very, very clear to my workforce that not to do that, because that wrecks everything for everybody. But I would be concerned hearing that from you, in given your career that you have experienced that. There are funny points where if you come down here on the approach to Reims Way, on the approach to the roundabout, you've got the bus lane, and then you've got to come out the bus lane and get back into the main flow of traffic. Where if you're turning left into Wincheap, you're waiting for the bus lane to finish, and then you're kind of all crossing over, and it's a bit of a mush. But I think broadly speaking, I wouldn't want to see that. I'd be very happy to be disciplining people if they did do that. And indeed, that's what we do now. People taking breaks when they shouldn't be. And my kids are the first people to text me saying, "Dad, the driver's got off and they're vaping."
Mr. Mitchell, thank you ever so much. We very, very much appreciate your time here today.
I'm really
we've
sorry. I
every
thought I was
single
only gonna
person's
be here
asked a
20
question,
minutes. I think
which
I've
is
been
wonderful. But yeah, we very much appreciate your time. It's been very good, and we very much look forward to seeing you again. I'm sure you look forward to these detailed questions that are being fired over to you.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, we very much appreciate your time.
Could I say a word?
Of course.
I just want it really to you. Thank you so much for that. There's lots of proposals for bus priority in the transport strategy. It's a cracking read, I tell you. And I think it'll take a long time to roll out. And I think it'll be quite a difficult task to get all of the bus priority that we've put in the transport strategy agreed. But we have got quite bold proposals for improving bus priority through the city, through the district really, but through the city in particular.
Once again, thank you very much. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much for having me. You will have my email address. Feel free to drop me a line around anything you need to see. And if we can do it, we will. And if we can't, I'll tell you why.
I'm sure you won't regret giving that address out. Thank you, buddy.
I'm going to get in trouble.
See you soon.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Right, number 7 and 8. Now, we unfortunately have lost Kevin Gore. Now, I say that quite lightheartedly, but let's hope he's actually okay, because he isn't here, and we did check the office today, and he wasn't there either. So let's hope that he's fine. We are probably going to have to either come back to that or try and get a report sent out to us from him. But let's see where he is and see that he's okay. I don't think we have any other option at this point but to approach that in this way, unfortunately, which takes us straight to number 9, monitoring of previous decisions. Oh, just 1 second, sorry. Oh, okay. I've been asked and correctly corrected that we should have general consent to skip those items. Mr. Sol, you have your hand up.
Can I just raise one point, Chair? At the last meeting, and it was minuted that we would receive updates this time on things like the Wincheap Gyratory scheme and the Surrey Link Road. And I had hoped that if KCC were here, there might be something within that. There's nothing in the written report. Can I ask you to ask that at the next meeting there is a written report on those items?
Yes, you can. I have actually already been prompted previous to this, and I'd emailed Kevin that exact question. So I was also hoping that he'd be in that. So he has already been sent that question. Whether he answers it, of course, is a different matter, but I will see him and I'll do it, yes.
Sorry, can I ask that it's before the next meeting? Because it's been quite a few meetings now that we've been promised an update on both of those projects, Wincheap and Surrey Link Road. And it's not just at this JTB, but other council meetings. And I'm not sure when our next meeting is, but it does feel quite a long way away. I think it'd be good if.
I think that's fair enough.
Thank you.
We'll get that sorted via email, or if I can actually get hold of him to see him. Mrs. Nolan, hello.
Thank you. It's mention of the Surrey Link Road. I don't know if anybody else is as fascinated as I am, but there's a chap posting on Facebook about the work as it progresses, and it's very engaging. And it makes me think that possibly KCC should do that when there's a major piece of work going on, and it's his own initiative that he's doing. Yeah, it is very good, isn't it, Alex? Yeah.
I believe they did, but I could stand corrected on that. But it's a very good point. Right, if we're all happy, can we have consent that we're going to skip 7 and 8 on the basis that we will get an update in writing, hopefully before the next meeting? Oh, well done, Councillor Duke. First. Thank you. We have general assent. We're going to take it as that. Oh no.
Sorry, Chair. Does that mean these aren't going to come back, or we're just going to take it as this all okay, or is it coming back? In the next meeting?
We definitely want him to come back, but we also want him to give a report before he does.
Okay. So now I do have a question and a comment, so I've written down, but obviously we'll take it next meeting. Thank you.
Well, or email it. We will move to 9 then if we have that consent. Over to you, I think. Is that right?
Thank you, Chair. All of the monitoring worked out to be Canterbury City Council matters. The first one, I wrote it before the end of May, as you will see. Pound Lane is now open. It's incorporated within the, not open, sorry, completely finished. The works are completely finished, and all of the roadworks barriers have been removed. So it's closed to traffic apart from cyclists, and it's been incorporated into the Westgate Square work. The Gas Street, the next one was Gas Street traffic regulation order. It will have to be re-advertised because it will be out of time by the time it's required. So we'll do that as part of the annual parking review. We've completed all of the cycle projects from the Levelling Up funding, and in actual fact, that is on the works monitoring report, which is the previous item. But they're all completed anyway, so that can come off next time. And all of the annual parking review, parking restrictions have been marked out and came into effect in April. There's one, I know there's 1 or 2 gaps. There's a gap near where I live. There's cars continuously parked there, and the lining operator hasn't been able to come back. But we will keep pressing him to do that. So that's it, really.
Lovely, thank you. Mr. Wickes.
Just quickly on previous decisions, the issues that where we did have from a previous decision that was sort of didn't come to us because there wasn't well, we did come to us through the January parking regulation thing where we had a slight variation between Canterbury and other parts of the district that was resolved outside of this chamber. I've gone completely blank. The one that, I mean, it was covered in the press, but I think maybe it would be worth having it in the updated previous decisions. So it was the one where we had a district-wide change to conditions, but decided that we would actually just only apply that in Canterbury, where the issue was, I think it was residents.
And it turned out to be my mistake, that we shouldn't have applied it to Herne Bay at all. It was my mistake, and it should only have applied to Canterbury. So yeah, we did a a quick press release, apologised to everybody, and I think it's gone away. And I'm happy to take the rap for it. It just was my mistake.
Sorry, it wasn't designed to do that. It was just something I thought it might be useful to have that as part of the updated decisions. Just have that as a record,
Yeah.
that's what it is, to prevent that reoccurring in the future. It was just a point.
Thank you ever so much. I see no other hands coming up. I have the date of the next meeting is at 7 p.m. on the 20th of October. It seems like a bit away, so but we will look forward to that, of course. In the meantime, I'm going to open up to any other business. Wonderful. In that case, I shall draw the meeting to yes, Mrs. Nolan. Oh, we were all walking out the door at that point.
Sorry, no, it's just very quickly. So I looked this up because I was hoping that Kevin Gore was going to be here. But on the 29th of July last year, Alistair Brady and myself walked around the city with people from KCC Highways because we had had a lot of flooding because there'd been torrential rain. And also there was a sewer collapse in St Dunstan Street. But one of the things that we were most concerned about was the flooding of the underpasses. And I just wanted to raise this because I have been given to believe that the reason why the gullies in the underpasses can't be cleaned because they're all clogged up and that's why it becomes like a swimming pool is because KCC haven't got the right equipment anymore. So I just thought something to raise at this JTB, that if KCC can't clean gullies, Canterbury is a basin, basically, because we're surrounded by the hills, and that's why we've got the River Stour anyway. Every time we have a downpour, and they seem to be more increasing like that, we're going to have residents complaining that the drains aren't sufficient and the gullies aren't sufficient to take things away. So my question is, how do we, as Canterbury people, say this is unacceptable and we ought to have our gullies cleaned on a regular basis, and something should be done about clearing the underpasses gullies? I know that Canterbury City Council clean them, as in, brush them and so forth, on behalf of KCC. But it's not that, it's the fact that the actual gullies to take the rainwater away are completely clogged.
Thank you. We'll minute that and get that to Kevin. Councillor Thomas.
Just a quickie, because it's just reminding me, when I come into Canterbury to get my laptop sorted out the other day, the new crossing from, trying to think now, whether you have a split crossing, someone help me out in Canterbury, I don't know very well. No, the new crossing, you used to have a centre reservation, that's been taken away, and it's
Burgate. The Burgate.
No. Can't think what it's called now. No, I'll come back.
Yeah, come back with it, but
I can't think where it is. It's the new crossing that's been put in as you come from the Victorian fireplace.
Oh, pretty good.
Right. But the pathway when it rains, it floods right in front of where you've got to walk across the crossing.
if you look it up, we're going to just put a note on the minutes for that to give to Kevin as well. Oh, we've got
On
it.
Ring Road.
Yeah.
I think that is the new one that's gone in. It cuts onto Burgate.
Oh, I don't know the area of Canterbury very well, but that's always flooded.
It goes from Church Street, St Paul's to Burgate across Lower Bridge Street.
Right, we've made a note of that as well. I've seen it happen. Yeah, fair enough. I'm looking around. I'm now closing this meeting. Wonderful. I'll see you in October.